All right. You ready to do this thing? Not sure if I am, but let's go. I got nothing else to lose, right? Why do I do this to myself? Hawlo! Happy holidays, everybody. Well, I don't know about you, but I am feeling pretty friggin' good today. Got the nice, cozy red thinking chair here, the fake fire going, and the slightly less fake Christmas tree up there. And now that I never have to hear from Evil Santa or his family again, finally, after 6 long years, I'm gonna get to have a normal Christmas. I always look forward to doing these Christmas specials, not just because Christmas is my favorite time of the year, but a lot of you guys have been so kind and so courteous to me, and I can't think of a more appropriate time to give back and express my gratitude. But these videos also prove to be a challenge because, you know, it's the holidays, and I can't just throw some random video together and expect you guys to eat it up. You deserve something extra special. So I have to put all my time and effort into it, pour every fiber of my being into every paragraph, every second, until it's absolutely perfect, even if it kills me. Which almost happened a couple times. I love you guys too much, I'm so sorry. But what makes a Christmas review truly special has almost everything to do with the games I talk about. Now, I used to have a tradition on my channel where I would talk about the most recent Mario-related game during my Christmas specials, but this sort of created a problem for me. For some years, I might have already done a big new game for Summer of Mario, so I'd have to wait and see if something even bigger comes out closer to winter. Then there might be years where we don't necessarily get a Super Mario Odyssey or a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And Knuckles. And in these situations, I'd have to think long and hard about what I could possibly do. This was one of those times. Nowadays, it doesn't really matter to me whether a game is recent or not, just as long as it's Mario related and something my viewers would really want to see. Then, back in September, something occurred to me. There's one particular aspect of this franchise that, to this point, I've yet to cover in detail. A series of RPGs that I can either A, split up into multiple reviews and release for next year's Summer of Mario, or B, cram them all into one big video and make it a Christmas special, giving me only 3 months to do by the time I'd have to start recording footage. Yes, that's completely insane and extremely stupid. But I did it, didn't I? I might be a little late when this video comes out, but here we are. We're finally talking about the Mario and Luigi series. God, it seems like I've had people practically begging me to review these games for as long as my channel's been around, particularly when I covered the first 3 Paper Mario games during Summer of Mario over 2 years ago. So, if you're one of those people, rejoice! If you stopped watching me since then, well, I don't really blame you. My videos are kind of terrible. I said I would get to these games eventually, but I've always held off on it because I hadn't really played them all that much. I've been aware of this series for a long time, but before I started making this video, I'd only played a little bit of Superstar Saga, I'd never played Partners in Time, my brother had Bowser's Inside Story, and neither of us got very far in it. I played the demo of Dream Team, and Paper Jam brought back memories I wished I could forget. I didn't have a lot of experience with RPGs growing up, and at that time, Paper Mario was all I really needed to get my role-playing fix. Until they started to suck. So it's not like I didn't care about these games, I just felt more comfortable sticking with what I already knew. But now I wish I could have given them the time that they deserve, because I'm sure I would have loved them too. Despite being the obsessive Paper Mario zealot that I was.
Dude, jeez, get out of here. Yeah.
The Mario and Luigi games were created by Alpha Dream, a team that consisted of former Square employees, including most of the same people that worked on Super Mario RPG. And you can see just how much that game is rooted in the series' DNA. The wild storytelling, the tongue-in-cheek humor, the character designs. It even takes some inspiration from Paper Mario, so you could say that Mario and Luigi almost kind of feels like an amalgamation of Mario's other role-playing games, which makes it that much more unique.
After a 20-year sibling rivalry, Mario and Luigi team up using synchronized super moves in their most ridiculous adventure ever.
Bruh, they literally swim around Bowser's guts in the third game, but running around a field? Oh, dude. That's totally ridiculous. I should mention that Ant Dude also has an entire series retrospective on his channel, but that's just a compilation of reviews that he'd already done. I'm not taking the easy way out. I'm putting 5 videos worth of work into this one video, completely starting from scratch. And while the Paper Mario series constantly changed up the formula from one game to the next, I figured that the Mario and Luigi games would be different in some ways, but similar enough so that I could get away with covering them all in just one video. Sort of like my Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, and Dr. Mario retrospectives. And while they are similar in terms of gameplay and combat, in hindsight, I think I might have really underestimated just how different they would be. How am I still alive? Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's kick things off appropriately enough with the very first game in the series, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. It opens with an ambassador from the Bean Kingdom arriving at Princess Peach's castle to present her with a gift. But that ain't no ambassador, that's our main villain, Cackletta. Joining her is her henchman Fawful, who sprays Peach with this mysterious green gas that causes her to pass out. I can only wonder where that gas could have come from. A Toad runs over to the Mario Brothers house to let them know what's happened, and in one of the most surprising aspects of this game, the first character you're put in control of is neither Mario or Luigi, it's the Toad. And he walks in on a half-naked Mario getting out of the shower.
Ugh, why is it shaped like that?
And spitting everywhere. But when they make it to the castle, another Toad tells them that Peach's voice was stolen and replaced with what they call an explosive vocabulary. It's so bad that Bowser won't even kidnap her, but not because he's worried about her condition. He's more concerned about the safety of his castle. So he offers to fly Mario and Luigi to the Bean Kingdom on his Koopa Cruiser so that they can figure out how to get Peach's voice back. But if we're gonna fly, we'll need to get new pictures for our passports. Perfect.
Yo!
Later, Mario and Luigi are confronted by Cackletta, who orders Fawful to take care of him. He quickly gets his ass handed to him, however, so in retaliation, Fawful blows up the cruiser, causing everyone on board to plummet towards Stardust Fields. After running around for a bit and playing a quick game of jump rope with the Border Brothers, Mario and Luigi find themselves in Hoo Village, where they're told that the prince of the Bean Kingdom, Prince Peasley, was kidnapped. In reality, Cackletta turned him into this thing called a Drago hee-hee to keep him out of the way while she carries out her plan. It's not actually called that, I just really wanted to say Drago hee-hee. Fortunately, the Mario Brothers are able to change him back, and eventually they make their way to Bean Castle. But while Mario and Luigi get caught up having to deal with a plumbing emergency, which, to my knowledge, might make this the only Mario game to have them do any actual plumbing, Cackletta manages to steal the Bean Star, the obligatory star-themed MacGuffin for this game. The Bean Star has the power to grant any and all wishes, and of course, with a power like that, it's safe to assume someone's gonna want to use it for evil! To avert this, the people of the Bean Kingdom put it into a deep sleep and made it so that it could only be awoken by the sound of a pure person's voice. That pure person just so happens to be Princess Peach, so Cackletta plans on using her voice to wake up the Bean Star and attain world domination. That doesn't work out well for her because the sound of Peach's voice causes the Beanstar to go berserk and fly away. This gives Mario and Luigi enough time to catch up with Cackletta and take her down. For now. Wow. But what exactly caused the Beanstar to freak out like a spoiled kid throwing a tantrum because his parents wouldn't let him use his tablet at McDonald's? That joke's based on a true story, by the way. Well, when Princess Peach arrives in the Bean Kingdom with her voice completely not stolen, it's revealed that Prince Peasley warned her of Cacoletta's arrival, and that the Peach whose voice was stolen at the start of the game was actually Birdo pretending to be Peach. Huh. This is actually a really good twist. But why they gotta throw Birdo under the bus like that? Are you trying to tell me their voice isn't sweet enough to awaken the Beanstar? Speaking of Cacoletta, what happened to her anyway? Well, after she's initially defeated, Fawful sprays Bowser with this purple gas, allowing Cacoletta's spirit to take his form and turn him into the hilarious but frightening Bowletta. Later, they and Fawful manage to capture Princess Peach, and then Bowletta sends a message via Game Boy Advance hologram. How come my GBA can't do that? Offering to free the princess if Mario and Luigi bring them the Beanstar. But if it plans to return Princess Peach when we give it the Beanstar. Well, okay, I know Bowletta's the villain here, but that's a bit transphobic, don't you think? I'm skimming over a few details, so I apologize if this summary seems a bit cluttered, but short and to the point, the brothers have to rescue Peach, defeat Bowletta, and keep the Beanstar safe. The plot isn't just a fetch quest where you go collecting star pieces or star spirits or crystal stars or anything like that. It's one big adventure with a basic goal to accomplish. There is a point somewhere near the middle where the Beanstar breaks into pieces that scatter all over the kingdom, but it surprisingly doesn't take very long to find them all, which is oddly kinda refreshing. Superstar Saga tells a very fun story with a lot of fun characters, some of which have become widely beloved among fans. Looking at you, Falafel. But Bubbles' whole shtick about being stuck telling this Chicola Reserve nothing but soda jokes for 1,000 years? That's great. I also really like how Popple acts as the junior Troopa of this game, always showing up at the most unexpected moments to give you hell. And this photographer? Oof, I totally feel that. My commissions are open! Hit me up! I'm incredibly desperate and I need the money. And with this being a role-playing game set in the Mario universe, it's gotta have them jokey jokes. Oh, actually, that reminds me of this really weird publicity stunt that Nintendo pulled to hype up the game's release in North America. So, apparently back in 2003, they held a contest where people could send in knock-knock jokes. Don't ask. And whoever sent in the best one would win a Game Boy Advance SP and a copy of Superstar Saga. And you will never guess who was chosen to pick the winner. Kathy Griffin. I couldn't even make this up if I tried. And you want to know what the winning joke was? Knock knock, who's there? Pencil. Pencil who? Your pencil fall down if you don't wear a belt. That was good. I'm sorry, did I ruin that take? No, that was great. I'm keeping that. One gag present across the whole series, starting with this game, revolves around people giving Luigi nicknames like Mr. Green or Green Stash because they have absolutely no idea who he is, but Mario's like a big celebrity that everyone loves. It's funny, but I also kind of feel bad for Luigi. Can you really blame me though? He is my baby after all. Oops, I mean... God, I'm never gonna get tired of using that. At least he gets some moments to shine, especially during the sections where he and Mario are separated. My favorite of these is when Mario gets sick with bean fever and Luigi has to find Krabby Grass to get Mario his strength back, but he's too scared to go out on his own. So scared he can't even jump or use any of his abilities on the overworld. So Kamek hypnotizes him into thinking he's Mario, making him brave enough to get the cure. Sure, he's not exactly himself, but Luigi's still revered for finding it in the end, so he he did a thing. There's also a point in the story where Luigi dresses up as Peach and lets himself get captured by Bowletta instead of the real Peach, which I can't help but feel is a callback to the Super Mario Adventures when he and Peach switch places so that she can blow up Bowser's castle from inside. She's extremely hardcore in those comics. I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence, but it's a little too specific for me to think of it that way. More obvious nods and references are sprinkled all throughout the game, and finding them was not a difficult task. You'll start as early as the title screen, since the Super Mario Advance version of Mario Bros. Is included as a separate mode, which is kind of appropriate since Superstar Saga also focuses on Mario and Luigi, pretty obvious given their names are in the title, and 2003 was the 20th anniversary of the original Mario Bros. As for the actual adventure, well, there's a room in Woohoo University with blocks from different Mario games like Super Mario World and Super Mario 64. There's another area themed after the Donkey Kong arcade game. There are side-scrolling sections paying homage to Super Mario Bros., and you fight enemies from all across the franchise, like Rexes and even the viruses from Dr. Mario. Oh, I love how they incorporated the viruses. So, they only appear in groups, right? Well, they change color every time you hit them, so red turns to blue, blue turns to yellow, and yellow turns back to red. So the only way you can kill them is by making them all the same color. That is so brilliant. Oh, hey Gino. It doesn't just stop at Mario. The Yoshi Theater has movie posters referencing Kirby, Wario, and the legendary Starfy. There's even a point where one of the Hammerhead Bros says, "Now you're playing with power." Cool, but what kind of power are we talking about here? Portable power? Superpower? Puppy power? But the game doesn't just throw a bunch of references in your face to make up for a lack of substance. I mean, what do you think this is? Space Jam 2?
Now say, I'm hunting rabbits.
This movie sucks! No, there's a lot more to this game than even I could have imagined diving into it for the first time. Since Superstar Saga was made by many of the same people that worked on Super Mario RPG, both games are structured in a very similar way. But while the latter lets you travel to different areas by selecting them on a world map, the former puts you in a giant overworld split into different locations that you can seamlessly travel through. There's also a map feature that gives you a pretty vague idea of where you are and where you're supposed to go. It's nice to have, but admittedly, it's like NFTs. Unreliable and not well executed. Hey, you think I'm an outsider here? Boom! Look at that. Keanu actually agrees with me. See? He gets it. He knows what's going on.
Well,
I remember actually getting lost a couple times, like when I backtracked to a previous area to get some extra goodies, and couldn't find my way back to my last save point once I was ready to move on. You are given more detailed maps during sections that are heavy on puzzle solving, but why couldn't every other location have maps like these? Well, anyway, you control Mario and Luigi at the same time, and each of them are assigned to a singular button. The brother in front is mapped to the A button, and the brother in the back is mapped to the B button. Now, in other Mario role-playing games, Mario is often joined by a party of different characters, each with their own unique abilities. In Superstar Saga, Mario and Luigi are the only... I'm choking on my saliva. Mario and Luigi are the only two characters you have for the entire game, and no other characters join them on their adventure. Each brother can still do things that the other brother can't, but they're mostly variations of the same types of abilities. Jumps, hammers, and elemental powers. If Luigi's in the back, he can bounce off of Mario to perform a high jump, smash him with a hammer to make him flat and get through tight spaces, or zap him with his thunder hand to make them both move slower. If Mario's in the back, he can jump on top of Luigi and spin jump to get them both across wide gaps, use his hammer to bash Luigi into the ground and have him move under certain obstacles, and light him up with his fire hand to make him run faster. There is some individuality between them, so there's never a point where I forget who's supposed to do what, and I'm never asking myself, well, if Mario can do this, why does Luigi need to do that? But switching positions and choosing what the game calls bros actions can be a little confusing. So you can swap the bros around by pressing the start button, and you toggle between actions by using the shoulder buttons. But it's not like you can just scroll through a list of actions with them, like tapping L to go left and R to go right. The L button is used to pick actions for the brother in front to perform, and the R button applies to the brother in the back. With the GBA's limited number of buttons to work with, this setup is fine, but also slightly cumbersome to try and navigate, mainly using start to switch positions since I'm so used to it being a pause button or a menu button, but the menu is mapped to the select button instead, and while I can't deny this is most definitely a me problem, I think it should have been the other way around. This is pretty fun though. I was able to get the hang of it, and once I did, the journey became much more comfortable. What also helped was the way in which you get farther along in the game, and the sheer variety of stuff there is for you to do. Superstar Saga's means of progression often have you taking part in various minigames. Super Mario RPG had these as well, but they were mostly relegated to optional side quests. In this game, not all of them are mandatory, but some are pretty much required to play, like earning enough points in this barrel minigame to get a membership card from Bink and locate a piece of the Beanstar, using Luigi as a surfboard to get to Joke's End. I love this bit, by the way, it's just so funny. Having the brothers working together to climb up out of a warp pipe, which reminded me a lot of The Emperor's New Groove. I didn't think I'd be referencing that movie twice in this video.
Or shooting bursts of water at Bob-ombs to create fabric designs for Harhal. Oh, look! I made a Homestar Runner shirt.
That is literally so great.
This might be one of my favorite aspects of the game, not just due to how all these different styles of gameplay are utilized, but the minigames themselves are a lot of fun and a nice change of pace. Meanwhile, on the overworld, you can have Luigi dig up beans out of the ground by making him jump up from under these X's. Then you can bring him to the Star Beans Cafe to make beans into juices, and every time you make a new blend, Professor Egad, who runs the place, will reward you with a special item. I didn't have time to try out much of the game's other side quests, same for the sequels, but this was a nice little surprise. When you're not bashing your little brother into the ground, looking for beans, you'll be hitting question blocks and maybe some hidden blocks if you can find them. But there are also different types of blocks that change color to indicate which brother can hit it, or do things like make bridges appear when two of the same block are punched simultaneously. These are also called Simo blocks, which I misread as Simu blocks, immediately making me think of Simu Liu, one of many contributing factors that led me to coming out as bisexual. But of course, this wouldn't be an RPG without some good old-fashioned combat, and Superstar Saga establishes a battle system that would stay mostly consistent for the rest of the series. Like in Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario, battles are turn-based. You touch an enemy on the overworld to engage in battle with them, which is really fun when you can't even see them, and both brothers can use items and badges, which can be bought from shops using coins. While the button mapping on the overworld depends on which positions they're in, during battle, Mario is always on A, and Luigi is always on B. Each of them have their own stat lists pertaining to their heart points, attack, and defense, while speed determines how soon they can attack, stash points determine how often a brother can land lucky hits and deal extra damage, and then there are bro points, which are used to perform bros attacks. To do it successfully, you have to press the A and B buttons at just the right time to execute whatever action is required of you. But bros attacks also let you choose a difficulty level to perform them at, so you get to decide whether you want to land successful hits more easily at the cost of dealing less damage, or make your attacks trickier to pull off, but have them hit harder if you get it right. By performing bros attacks enough times, regardless of which skill levels you pick, they can evolve into super attacks, and you'll notice when you see this little advanced graphic pop up. Other bros attacks can be unlocked after learning bros actions on the overworld, and these are especially great to use against enemies weak to certain types of attacks, like fire or thunder-based ones. At the start of each turn, one brother will make their move, then the other brother will have a go, and then it's the opponent's turn. But Mario and Luigi can jump to dodge enemy attacks, and with good timing, perform a counterattack by jumping on top of them or bonking them with their hammer. enemies will indicate which brother they're going after if they're not targeting both of them at once. Mario and Luigi will gain experience points from winning battles and level up after passing a certain threshold. Then, like in the first 2 Paper Mario games, you can pick a stat and add some extra points to it, but how much is added depends on which number the roulette stops on. Compared to other Mario RPGs, this battle system is certainly much more reaction-based. Ever hear of this game called Tomato Adventure? Me neither, but apparently it was another Alpha Dream project that had a massive influence on Superstar Saga's development. Its battle system in particular had you partaking in a series of bite-sized mini-games to execute certain attacks. Yeah. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Well, I can appreciate how they were able to take this concept and morph it into something really unique and inventive for the Mario franchise. However, as much as I really do like what they came up with here, the combat does sort of get a little repetitive. Maybe this is just my Paper Mario bias kicking in, but I felt the first 2 games gave you a lot more options to consider. Thousand Year Door came out after this game, so that might not be a fair comparison, but the original still had the benefit of the partner system, which let you experiment with tons of different characters and movesets and added a wider degree of strategy. Superstar Saga encourages you to work within your limitations. It's supposed to be its own thing, and I respect it for that. I just wish there was a little more to it. I also wish I'd properly prepared myself to face some of these bosses. The one that took me the longest was the fight with Popple and Birdo, only because I ran out of items to replenish my BP, so I couldn't use any of my bros attacks anymore, meaning I had to rely on normal attacks to finish the job, which isn't ideal for bosses with as much HP as these guys. I also found it weird how Birdo kept putting Popple in a giant egg to protect him, even after he's already beaten.
Beaten like an egg? Come on, you gotta admit, that was nowhere near as bad as that pencil joke.
You know what is bad? Roy's fight. It just plain sucks. So when you make it to the end, you gotta get past the Koopalings in order to get to Bowletta. The first couple fights aren't so tough, but then there's this sunglass-wearing sack of air. Every time I had to dodge his fireballs, I always got the timing right with Luigi, but for some reason, it's incredibly strict with Mario. There's also a bomb the whole time, and if you don't beat Roy after a certain number of turns go by, the bomb will detonate and you get a game over. It doesn't matter how much HP you have, that's it. You lose. Game over, man. Game over!
I didn't want this to be another Mario RPG situation where I would just give up, download a completed save file off the internet, and then skip ahead to the final boss. So, what did I do? Well, because I was using BizHawk to emulate it, I had my brother Mike help me get cheats enabled so that I could take out the rest of the Koopalings with just one hit. I don't feel too bad about it because I got through the rest of the game without using cheats and made it pretty close to the end. Plus, I don't care. And f*** you, Roy. I also don't feel bad about using emulation since I do have legal copies of every Mario and Luigi game, and emulation is just better for ease of access and getting higher quality footage. But I think BizHawk might have had a problem with me using cheats because once I got past the credits and went back to the title screen, this happened. Oh dear.
Well, overall, I think Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is pretty good. Areas can be a little too spacious and somewhat forgettable in terms of layout, and battles can get a bit stale after a while. On the other hand, I really got a kick out of the story and the characters. The writing in general is on point. Mario and Luigi can be quite versatile, and it's just great to finally get a Mario RPG where the two of them are working together, as opposed to Mario being the hero while Luigi is sort of brushed off to the side. I also find the art style super charming. The designers took inspiration from the original Paper Mario, and you can kinda see it with the backdrops and some of the character designs. While I find Paper Mario's aesthetic a little more appealing, again, maybe that's just me being biased, Superstar Saga still looks great, and sounds great too, for that matter. Yoko Shimomura is a composer whose work I greatly admire, and After she lent her musical talents to the Super Mario RPG soundtrack, she's done it again for this game, and for the rest of the series. It's just a joy to listen to, some of my favorite tracks being the title screen, the battle theme, Hoo Hoo Village, Bean Bean Outskirts, the credits theme, and all of her delightful little remixes of classic Mario tunes make my heart grow 3 sizes.
Oh, or maybe that's just cardiomegaly. Oh, I should definitely go see a doctor. Oh, too late!
Well, I look forward to hearing more of Yoko's work as we move on to the rest of the games. But, lest we forget about the remake released for the Nintendo 3DS in 2017, titled Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions. I won't spend that much time talking about the main game, but I did notice a fair amount of improvements, some of which are based on the other Mario & Luigi 3DS games we'll be talking about later. Obviously, the graphics were given a new coat of paint, but now the controls have been simplified so that the game automatically switches Mario and Luigi's positions based on whatever Bros action you want to perform. And on top of that, you can use the touchscreen to pick between them. You can also press the X button to have Mario and Luigi jump at the same time. You can save your progress from wherever you are on the overworld. There's a guide option for you to see how certain actions work. You can fast forward through cutscenes by holding down the R button. And you have a much more detailed map visible on the bottom screen that you can even put pins on! Oh, and there's a new feature where you can collect stamps by scanning amiibo figures into the game. Rad. But those are just some of the many other additions that help make this the definitive version of Superstar Saga for me. Honestly, I don't think I can even go back to the original after playing this one. Even the remastered soundtrack is great, with a few minor exceptions. Fawful's theme uses this trumpet sample that goes down on the end of a phrase, and it just doesn't sound as nice as it did in the GBA game. As for the Bowser's Minion subtitle, well, that refers to a new campaign exclusive to the remake called Minion Quest: The Search for Bowser. The story focuses on, well, Bowser's minions as they go out to rescue their leader after the Koopa Cruiser crashes and sends everyone on board flying all over the place. It's not particularly deep, it's more like a fun little side story that gives us a glimpse into what these characters go through while Mario and Luigi are off on their adventure. And the ways in which it ties into the main plot are pretty neat. Mario and Luigi find the Bean Bean Castle Town in ruins when they first arrive, but here we actually get to see Fawful and Cackletta destroy it. Egad talks about opening the Star Beans Cafe because he wants to use it to fund his ghost research. We even get to see characters from later games, like Private Goomp, who's retroactively revealed to be one of the first 2 Goombas that the Mario Brothers fought in the original Superstar Saga. Oh god, those fangirls are back too. Wait, what's she saying? I'd love for Bowser to kidnap me. How fun would that be? You have Stockholm Syndrome. Since we have a new cast of characters to work with, the gameplay in this mode is also quite different. Progression is mission-based, and you go through a series of battles using teams composed of enemies like Koopa Troopas and Hammer Brothers. The opposing team consists of Cackletta's minions, and you win by taking out their team's captain. But if your captain gets hit too many times, then you lose. These battles are fought automatically, so you don't really have that much influence over how they play out. You don't get to choose which enemies to target or which of your teammates gets to attack. You can perform the occasional action command once the game says you can, and as the captain, you can also perform captain commands that are activated by tapping them on the touchscreen or pressing the D-pad in the direction that correlates with a specific command. These can do things like give your teammates a morale boost and make them more likely to attack, or prevent opponents from using action commands of their own. As you go from one mission to the next, you'll recruit more minions to fight alongside, and even new captains to lead their own squads. Minion Quest also uses a rock-paper-scissors style of comparing strengths and weaknesses. Ranged troopers throw weapons and projectiles and are strong against flying types, which attack from above and are strong against melee troopers, which charge into enemies and make them strong against ranged troopers. In between missions, you can give your troops added enhancements by feeding them beans, and rearrange your squad layouts based on which fighters are most appropriate for a given mission. I really enjoyed Minion Quest for its narrative and how it ties into Superstar Saga, and gameplay-wise, it's a pretty decent distraction. I can't imagine spending too many hours on it, but even though it's much smaller than the main game, I'd still recommend you give it a look.
Jesus, we're over half an hour in and we just finished talking about the first game. Well, I guess that means we can move on to the next one, and that would be Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, which came out for the Nintendo DS in 2005. And as I mentioned near the beginning, this is the one that I had absolutely no experience with whatsoever, even though I've been aware of its existence for well over a decade. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I always had it in my head that this game was the one that everybody loved. Like, this was supposed to be the fan favorite. But nowadays, I hardly hear anybody talk about it. It seemed to get mostly great reviews at the time, but maybe the games that came after were just so much better that it made people change their minds on this one and look back on it less fondly. Kind of like what happened with Super Mario 3D World. But let's be real, that game wasn't even great to begin with. This one, though, I think it's pretty sweet and extremely underrated. But before we can get into why, let's take a look at that plot.
Partners in Time begins with a flashback to the Mushroom Kingdom of the past, where we're introduced to a race of alien creatures called the Shroobs, and the game really wants to drive home just how creepy these things are. There was this creepy planet floating alone. Just creepy daydreamers, right? At last, they fix their creepy gazes on a distant world. Well, with that amount of repetition, I'm guessing these guys are kind of weird. Oh, I mean, creepy. The Shroobs are looking for a new place to call home, and they set their sights on the Mushroom Kingdom and launch a full-scale attack. Meanwhile, in the present, Professor Egad has built a time machine that runs off the power of something called the Cobalt Star. I guess that explains how he was able to send Luigi back in time to the events of the first Luigi's Mansion.
You don't remember that, do you? Well, you probably would if they didn't put this friggin' game on the 3DS. It's sideways.
So Princess Peach is apparently so impressed with Egad's work that she decides to use the machine to travel to the past, and Toadsworth, fearing for Peach's safety, worries himself into a state of shroom shock.
This castle's so big, I sometimes get lost. And then I cry a little.
F's in the chat for Toad. Anyway, after Mario brings Toadsworth a refresh room, the time machine returns, but only a Shroob comes out, and Peach is nowhere to be seen. This also causes a time hole to appear in the garden, allowing Mario and Luigi to travel to the past in search of Peach. Professor Egad also sends a little briefcase creature named Stuffwell to assist them and act as their inventory. Wait, so where was Mario keeping those mushrooms before? Well, when they make their way to Holly Jolly Village, the bros are taken down by a horde of Shroobs, and while this is going on, younger versions of Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Bowser are attempting to escape in the Koopa Cruiser when baby Mario and baby Luigi are sent down to rescue their adult selves. But once they're brought aboard, the Koopa Cruiser is attacked by the leader of the Shroobs, Princess Shroob, causing it to crash into baby Bowser's castle. After Mario and Luigi reunite with their younger selves, the two sets of brothers later come across a piece of the Cobalt Star. When they return to the present to show it to Egad, the Shroob from earlier, now encased inside of a large holding tube, starts reacting negatively to the shard's energy. From this, Egad deduces that the Shroobs must be weak to the Cobalt Star's power, so now it's up to Mario, Luigi, and their infant counterparts to travel through the past, find Princess Peach, put the Cobalt Star back together, and defeat the Shroobs once and for all. It's certainly a much grander adventure than Superstar Saga, but despite what the setup might lead you to believe, the time travel aspect doesn't really have a lot of significance in the story. It's pretty much used as a plot device to establish the main conflict, and an excuse to have the adult versions of Mario and Luigi team up with their baby versions. There are hardly any moments in this game where changes made in the past also affect the future. The only time I can recall something like this happening is when the brothers visit a younger Egad, and his lab is severely damaged by volcanic rocks, which rearranges the future Egad's memories and gives him the idea to build the Hydrogush 4000 to pour water into a time hole and stop the volcano from erupting. I do like how the Hydrogush shares design similarities to Flood, another water-based creation of Egad's, even if it is triggering my Super Mario Sunshine-related PTSD. In hindsight, time travel stories are pretty difficult to get right. There's a lot of rules you need to follow and details you need to be consistent with. It can be done really well, but without proper attention or care, it'll spell disaster for you and sacrifice. In the case of Partners in Time, I think the writers chose not to use any time travel story cliches because they didn't want the narrative to get too complicated. I still think they should have given it more importance in the grand scheme of things, but it's a very admirable choice nonetheless. I also have to appreciate the game's tone for just how much darker it is than the previous one, and that can be attributed to the very presence of the Shroobs. They're cold and merciless creatures that only know death and destruction. They capture innocent toads, drain them of their essence, and use it to power their ships, leaving their victims trapped inside these trees to slowly die. That's incredibly horrific and extremely disturbing. I love it! Mario games don't usually get this dark and twisted, so when something like Partners in Time comes along, I welcome it with open arms. Where the story sort of falls apart, however, is when we get to the end. Basically, when Princess Peach arrived in the past, she was attacked by Princess Shroob's older twin sister, the Elder Princess Shroob. But Peach managed to trap her inside the Cobalt Star and shattered it into pieces. So all this time, we assumed that collecting all the shards and putting the Cobalt Star back together would help us defeat the Shroobs, when really, it allows the Elder Princess Shroob to escape. From a story perspective, the Cobalt Star actually benefiting the Shroobs is a great idea, and they could have had it so that Princess Shroob was secretly manipulating us into reassembling the Cobalt Star for her so that even when she's defeated, she can come back stronger. That would have made for a great "oh shoot" moment when the player realizes they were actually helping the bad guys this whole time. But her having an older twin sister? I don't know, it's not really built up well and sort of comes out of left field. At least it makes for a better climax than the actual final boss with Bowser, which is downright pointless if you ask me. Seriously, the game's over. Why do we need this? But aside from that, I generally found the plot to be a little more entertaining than Superstar Saga, and it has a much wider array of moments ranging from funny to wholesome to unnerving to, oh yeah, this game came out in 2005. Anytime Mario and Luigi play with the babies is like watching videos of puppies. You just can't help but go,
Oh, that is so freaking cute!
I also chuckled quite a bit when this gate in Star Hill commends Mario for his bravery, and then tells him to go on a diet. Bit rude to comment on his weight like that, but he's still a wise gate. I think the strangest moment in the entire game has to be when you come across these Hammer Brothers in Vim Factory. They each have an antenna on their helmets that puts them under the Shroob's control, and for some reason it also causes them to use Leet speak? We are te Shroob allies. We rock soar you and then raffle. Then you am cry. So, Shroob language translated into English is about as coherent as a NeoGAF form. Oh, mid to late 2000s internet. How I love to hate you and hate to love you. We must obey all orders. We like to pwn noobs for te master Shroobzors.
Did I have a stroke?
But with the jump to the Nintendo DS, how does Partners in Time differ from its predecessor in the gameplay department? Well, exploration and combat are pretty much exactly the same, only now you travel between the past and the future by jumping into time holes that appear as the game continues. Mario and Luigi are now mapped to the A and B buttons respectively at all times. Meanwhile, Baby Mario is mapped to the X button, and Baby Luigi is mapped to the Y button. On the overworld, Mario and Luigi can carry the babies on their backs or throw them off for you to control them separately. Then you can switch between the two sets of rows whenever you want, leading to moments where both the babies and adults will have to hit blocks or activate switches to affect the other's progress, making for some very inventive and more in-depth puzzle solving than the previous game. Each set of bros also has their own unique bros actions to perform. The spin jump from the last game is given to the adults, but only Baby Mario can use a hammer on the overworld. Baby Luigi gets a drill technique that lets him and Baby Mario go underground, move under gates and other hazards, and dig up beans like in Superstar Saga. Then you can trade them in at this bad shop that Fawful runs in the basement of Peach's castle to get some extra special gear.
It's so great to see him again. I didn't really understand his appeal at first, but after beating Superstar Saga, I get it now. And I love him!
Adult Mario and Luigi also have this new Bros Ball ability that lets them go full-on Sonic the Hedgehog and roll up into a ball to move faster and slip under low ceilings. They can even interact with the babies while using Bros actions to make even more things happen, like spin jumping into them so they can reach higher platforms, and rolling into them with the Bros Ball to flatten them like pancakes so they can move under even lower ceilings. And since this game was made for the DS, both screens are used to some capacity. The bottom screen is where most of the action and exploration takes place, while the top screen acts as a map that does a much better job at showing you where you are and where important events are taking place than the first game, and also switches focus to the babies when they're left on their own. But for an early DS game, I was shocked at just how little the touchscreen was utilized. Apparently when this game was in development, the only things Alpha Dream knew about the DS before it was officially revealed were that it had 4 face buttons and 2 screens. They probably didn't realize one of them was a touchscreen until later on, because the only part of the game that uses it is when you have to clean off Toadbert's drawing, and it happens so late into the game that it felt so sudden when it popped up. What even is this stuff you have to clean off anyway? Did somebody run out of toilet paper? At least the combat stays consistent. I know I said it was pretty much exactly the same as before, but that's not to say it hasn't had its fair share of modifications. For one thing, the Bros attacks from the last game have been turned into Bros items, and they don't require Bro points to use, you just need to have them in your inventory. You have more basic ones like the Green Shell, the Bro Flower, which might as well be called the Fire Flower, and the Ice Flower, debuting 4 years before its new Super Mario Bros. Wii counterpart. But my favorites include the Copy Flower, which makes clones of the Mario Brothers and lets them rack up tons of damage until you miss a button and break the chain, the Pocket Chomp, which has the Bros riding a chain chomp back and forth across the screen, a nice little callback to the baby special item from Mario Kart Double Dash, and the Mix Flower that lets all 4 Bros combine their fireballs into one giant fireball that can potentially annihilate your foes. As for normal attacks, well, Baby Mario and Baby Luigi can fight alongside their adult counterparts, or by themselves if you're controlling them on their own. When both sets of brothers are together, you can perform piggyback moves, letting the baby attack first and then the adult. This also applies to the Bros items, like having the adults take turns kicking a green shell at a bad guy, while the baby's riding on it and deals more damage when the shell collides with the enemy. When I said I wish the battle system in Superstar Saga had more variety to it, this is what I was hoping for. Something that allows for different means of approaching battles and a greater variety of actions to perform thanks to the inclusion of Bros items. This ultimately fixes the issue of repetition that was present in the previous game, and while I did end up resorting to some of the same 2 or 3 strategies over and over once I figured out which Bros items could be exploited to deal large amounts of damage, I never felt as if the combat was getting stale at any point. I do think some areas can feel a wee bit overcrowded with enemies. I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure more bad guys are present on the overworld here than in Superstar Saga, and sometimes you can deal with a lot of stupidly powerful enemies earlier in the game than you probably should. Not because you want to, but the game just puts them there, and they're not always easy to avoid. I must have fought more battles in this game than I did in the first one, and by the end, I got so tired that I wound up doing my best to avoid them as much as possible. Like calls from my telemarketer. But in the end, I don't think it's enough to tarnish the game's quality. There are still minigames to look forward to, though not as many as the first game. The story has a lot of fun twists and turns to keep you hooked, even if parts of it could have been better and more impactful. The worlds are more fun to explore, the battle system has some much needed variety, and overall, I think Partners in Time is a pretty big step up over its predecessor. It certainly is in terms of presentation. I'll admit, for as much as I love Yoko's style, her soundtracks can get a bit samey, so some of the songs present in this game end up sounding similar to tracks from Superstar Saga, but Partners in Time is still a joy to my ears and has plenty of standout hits like Yoshi Mountain, Star Hill, and Gritzy Desert, which even got a remix in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Graphically, it's not too different from the first game, but the colors are much more vibrant, and the areas have more unique set pieces. I especially love Holly Jolly Village's Christmas setting, very appropriate for this video, though I wish there were more blatant visual differences between the past and the future, aside from the obvious damage left behind by the shroobs. Does anyone else think Mario's walking animation looks a little weird too? From the side specifically? It just doesn't sit well with me, and it almost kind of looks like it was made for a fan game rather than an actual Mario game. And this plant kind of seems a bit sus, doesn't it?
Despite the critical acclaim it got when it was released, this game ended up selling about 500,000 copies less than its predecessor. It's not the worst selling game in the series, far from it. That'll come later. But I guess in Alpha Dream's eyes, it wasn't enough to warrant a 3DS remake like Superstar Saga. Well, regardless, I still think Partners in Time is criminally overlooked and well worth your time and money.
I wish and star have game.
Oh. Well, thanks for keeping it brief.
Remember when I said I thought Partners in Time was the one everybody loved? Well, if critical and fan reception is anything to go by, that distinction would have to go to Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Not gonna lie though, I've got a bit of a bone to pick with this game because, well, look at the box art. You've got Mario, Luigi, Bowser, and this little yellow circle thing in front of this plain white background. It wasn't as chaotic or colorful as the other games, but for the time, you could say it was to get players thinking about what sort of game they were in for. You might look at this and think, well, what's Bowser got to do with this? Is he going to be the hero? All these questions could flood your mind, and the cover's just like, I don't know. Guess you'll just have to play and see for yourself. Maybe that's not exactly what they were going for, but at the very least, it was vague enough to pique your interest. Then, for some reason, they decided to stick with this template for Dream Team and Paper Jam's box art, which just seemed lazy and uninspired by comparison. Now, look at the Superstar Saga remake. Look at this beautiful recreation of the GBA cover. Doesn't it just get you excited to relive the memories you had with the original? Well, here's the kicker. Every single region uses this genuine work of art as the game's cover, except Japan and North America. Wanna know what they got instead? That damn white background. Why do I feel like I'm looking at Mario and Luigi's mugshots?
But that's just the packaging. I'm more interested in the game itself, and Mario and Luigi fans generally seem to agree that this is the high point of the series. I distinctly remember when this game was announced at E3 2009. God, what a great time to be a Mario fan that was. I still didn't know much about the other Mario and Luigi games back then, but the idea of traveling around the insides of Bowser's body was... I don't remember how I felt actually, but I was 12 years old and the word vor meant nothing to me, so I probably thought the game sounded cool.
Bowser, that long-time bad guy, really does suck.
Oh, really? Is that how he took your job? My brother ended up getting it for his birthday that summer. In fact, this is his copy that I'm holding right here. He let me borrow it to show off in this video. And I remember getting through the first half hour of it, and then just putting it down and going back to Thousand Year Door for the 50th time. Like I said, I was 12. I had the attention span of a can of soup.
But I finally got around to beating this game, and if it didn't feel like Christmas already, it certainly will if you're into inflation, because toads across the Mushroom Kingdom have been infected with something called the blorbs, which causes them to inflate like balloons and roll around uncontrollably. Except for this guy, that's just what he looks like. This is the result of them eating blorb mushrooms, which were sold to them by a mysterious figure in a white cloak. So, Princess Peach holds an emergency meeting to figure out how to solve the crisis. During the meeting, Bowser bursts in and offers his services, but Mario wipes the floor with him, and with assistance from this star sprite named Starlo, Peach sends the Koopa King right out the window. After Kamek gives him his strength back, Bowser wakes up in a dense forest and eventually comes across the white-cloaked figure, who's so clearly Fawful that the game doesn't waste time in revealing who it is. So Fawful offers Bowser a lucky mushroom, which is actually a vacuum mushroom, claiming it could help him beat Mario. Never one to turn down such an offer, Bowser eats the mushroom and ends up getting a rumbly in his tumbly, oh bother, causing him to inhale everything in sight. When he returns to Peach's castle, he uses this power to suck up Mario and his friends, sending them all throughout the insides of his body. While everyone's trying to figure out what's going on, Fawful uses this opportunity to brainwash Bowser's minions and take over his castle. Later, when the Mario Brothers reunite with Peach, the game suddenly realizes, oh yeah, we need another magical star-shaped thingamadookie for you to learn about. This is when Peach reveals that Fawful is looking for something called the Dark Star, which could give evil beings the power to
Rule the world!
But the star sprites sealed it far below the surface of Toad Town to keep it from falling into the wrong hands, and Peach is the only person capable of breaking the seal and releasing it. I'm not sure if there were hints I might have missed before getting to this point, but I felt that the Dark Star's introduction didn't come as naturally as the Bean Stars or the Cobalt Stars, and that it was only added for the sake of tradition. But they do some pretty cool things with it later on, so for that to happen, Fawful uses his magic to pull Peach out of Bowser's body and puts her in a machine to extract her energy and break the seal around the Dark Star himself. I'm not sure what the point of giving Toads the Blorbs or Bowser the Vacuum Mushroom was, but seeing him try to hold her up is pretty funny. I'm guessing he relies more on magic than physical strength. Either that, or Peach seriously needs to lay off the Hot Pockets. With all the pieces in place, Fawful manages to find the Dark Star and takes it to Peach's castle, where he puts up a blockade to keep our heroes from reaching him. Then after Mario and Luigi fake being sick to get Dr. Toadley's intern to let them go in and see him, this is one of my favorite moments in the game by the way, the doctor informs them that 3 star cures will be needed not only to tear down the blockade, but by combining them together into the Miracle Cure, insert Dr. Mario joke here, they can also get rid of the Blorbs and potentially destroy the Dark Star. But in order to get the star cures, they'll need to retrieve them from the star sages. TLDR, Fawful's the bad guy, and you need to stop him. Bowser's inside story gets pretty wild, man. You know how I said they do some cool things with the Dark Star later in the game? Well, there's a point where Bowser actually swallows it, and then the Dark Star munches on parts of his DNA and manifests itself into a dark clone of Bowser that copies his every move. And I'm willing to bet this is the game that made people love Fawful so much. Before he was either a bumbling henchman or a sketchy badge salesman, but now he's a legitimate threat. Nobody can reference old Nintendo memes and make them sound as freaky as he can, that's for sure. Rounding out the cast is a slew of new characters such as Midbus, whose speech patterns were inspired by American dubs of kung fu movies, and Brock Monsieur, who I imagine sounding like the French taunter from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries!
Perhaps the most prominent new character of the bunch is Starlo, acting as Mario and Luigi's assistant for this game. I used to not like her as a kid, but nowadays I don't hate her, but I still don't really like her either. She has something to contribute, and she can be funny during moments when she's toying with Bowser. Maybe I just find her a bit bland and kind of annoying? Okay, yeah, she's pretty annoying. But the story is all around a pretty damn good time. I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason why this is so many people's favorite Mario and Luigi game was because it has some of the funniest moments in the series. I'd be right with them if that was the case. You know why the Goombas' only means of attack are just walking in a straight line? Well, apparently that's what they're trained to do in Goomba Boot Camp.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of this old College Humor short where a bunch of Mario enemies talk about all the ways that Bowser forces them to attack Mario, and they realize just how impractical they are in hindsight. Do you ever see that short? Because it's like, you know how the boos always freeze in place and turn invisible when Mario looks at them? Or when the Hammer Brothers throw their hammers, they always throw them in an arc right above his head and instead of just straight at him. Yeah, not really useful. I'm not sure what Bowser's deal is. Even in this game, there's a bit where some of Bowser's minions make fun of him behind his back. And yeah, when you really think about it, Bowser's kind of a dumbass.
Going back to Partners in Time for a second, while I did have some issues with its plot, I personally think it did a better job at having story events play out naturally over the course of the game. I also can't recall there being any moments that felt like padding for the sake of making the game longer, except for the final battle, because this one definitely has a few of those. However, in terms of the writing and overall narrative, I can easily say that Bowser's inside story is more entertaining, whether it's embracing the surreal nature of its setup or lightly touching on this interspecies relationship between a Boo and a Koopa Troopa, which, good for them, I hope they live a very happy life together. This game isn't afraid to stoop to the lowest form of silliness or the most immature levels of humor just to get a laugh out of you, as long as it's making you smile and keeping you hooked, which it very much succeeds at.
Mario pounded me at Peaches.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed it, you kinky bastard. Bowser isn't just given a bigger role in the plot, but he's also central to the game's main gimmick. Mario and Luigi travel throughout the insides of his body, which is split off into multiple areas that you can easily travel between by selecting them on a map. Each section is laid out like a 2D side-scroller and requires you to partake in a mix of platforming and puzzle solving to get around. I don't like how the map isn't always visible on the top screen during these sections, since you have to stop and press the select button to pull it up, which is kind of intrusive. But you won't be using Mario and Luigi for the entire game because Bowser's got his own stuff to do. You can take control of the Koopa King whenever he's available, and during these sections, Bowser can punch with the X button and breathe fire with the Y button to roast everything in sight. Like Sharon's pie. There are also these Chak Road portals that he can use to teleport to different parts of the overworld. Bowser's gameplay is relegated to these areas, but eventually Mario and Luigi can make their way out of his body and travel around the Mushroom Kingdom as well. Over time, they'll regain most of the same abilities they had in the first two games, but on the overworld, you'll find gas pumps that Mario can suck up helium from to inflate like a balloon. This game really loves inflation. And then Luigi can use him to jump higher and float across large gaps. The blue shell from New Super Mario Bros. Kinda makes a return here too, since Mario can wear it after hitting a shell block, and have Luigi smack him with his hammer to hit switches from a distance.
I think it's safe to say, though, that Mario and Luigi are at their most useful when they have to be inside Bowser. You can make your own jokes from now on. I can't keep it up. Keep it up. Damn it!
There are tons of moments all throughout the game where Mario and Luigi will have to do something from within Bowser's body to help him complete a given task, like stimulate his muscles to make him strong enough to pull an entire island towards him, or push a giant drill through a wall to make a secret tunnel! This involves playing different mini-games, which include a shooting-based one where you're blasting balls of adrenaline to get Bowser's energy up, and tapping chunks of food on the touchscreen to help Bowser digest it. Yeah, you know how Partners in Time barely made you use the touchscreen at all? Well, that screen gets a lot of love in this game, as does the microphone, both of which are used during these sections where Bowser becomes giant as a result of the brothers reviving him after he's severely injured, and then he has to fight a giant boss. You drag the stylus across the screen to punch, and blow into the microphone to breathe fire. And I swear to God, one fight had me doing this so much that I actually got lightheaded after it was over and needed to take a break. My lungs used to be a lot stronger than this. I need to work out more. But speaking of taking breaks, there's another part where Bowser suffers from severe back pain, so Mario and Luigi drill into this little cranny between his bones to help him recover, and you actually have to put your DS down and wait a whole 2 minutes for this to be done. Apparently there's also a code you can input that speeds up the process, which Toadbert gives you when you talk to him in Toad Town. But since I was emulating this game, I just used the fast forward feature to make this part go by quicker. Mario and Luigi can also help Bowser gain new abilities, allowing him to activate large switches by body slamming on top of them, and roll up into a ball to move across spikes, scale walls, and break through certain obstacles. But Bowser can also do things to affect Mario and Luigi's progress, like drinking water to let them swim around and reach higher places, or walking in front of this Boo Ray machine to make certain blocks disappear. I like games that sort of cut themselves in half and make it so that what you do on one side leaves an impact on the other. And the way Bowser's Inside Story does it allows for some great little puzzle solving. The battle system is also split between Bowser and the brothers. Combat in general follows the same basic idea as the first two games, but now Mario and Luigi can both land 2 jump attacks in one go if you press the action button at the right time. Badges don't work exactly as before. Now they're relegated to this meter on the bottom of the screen. Landing successful hits with both Mario and Luigi will have the meter fill up from both ends until the 2 badge icons meet in the middle. Then tapping them will give you an added bonus depending on which badges are out, so you can gain a brief attack boost or a certain amount of HP. Bowser doesn't have badges, but he makes up for that with more health and stronger attacks. He can also duck to avoid attacks from above, as well as damage enemies that try to jump on him. Then after Brock Monsieur gives him the vacuum block, he can suck up enemy weapons or even enemies themselves. I'm not sure why he couldn't just do that from the start after getting the vacuum mushroom, but once they get inside him, Mario and Luigi come back into play to take them on. Items and equipment are available to both the bros as well as Bowser, but now they can rank up after reaching a certain level, and the higher they rank up, the more accessories they can be equipped with. There's also this new item called a retry clock, and if you get a game over, it'll refill your stats, but then you have to start the battle over again.
And I only ever ended up using it once in the entire game, and that was just to get footage of it. So, there you go.
Bros attacks are back to how they were in Superstar Saga, acting as separate functions that require Bros points, or in this case special points, to use in battle. But how you unlock them is completely different. Bowser's Inside Story has these things called attack pieces, and by collecting 10 of them in a specific area, a new Bros attack will be made available. Then you can watch demo videos on the pause menu to see how each attack works, and you can practice using them as much as you want to help make you more familiar with them. I find it kinda strange how one of them is actually tied to story progression, and only one. That being the snack basket, which is 100% necessary to beat Chakron and get the star cure from him, because nothing else will work. After that, I don't remember using it much, or most of the other ones. I don't think I even used Spin Pipe at all. The Yoo-Hoo Cannon was great for targeting multiple foes at once, and Falling Star can do crazy amounts of damage, which makes it ideal for boss fights. Bowser gets his own special attacks too, but he doesn't get them from collecting attack pieces. Instead, he'll find groups of his minions locked in cages all over the kingdom, and after breaking them out, they'll give him some assistance in battle. So he can send a horde of flaming Goombas raining down on his foes, play a bit of Arkanoid with Koopa Troopas, or have a group of Shy Guys roll him up and fling him into enemies. Unlike the Mario Brothers, who have some really good ones, but mostly basic or not very reliable special attacks, Bowser's are all legitimately useful to some degree.
There's another attack he can use after finding all these little blitty creatures and bringing them back to Brock Monsieur, but I had less than 3 months to get this video done. I had to miss a couple things. Bowser's Inside Story is still widely considered to be the best in the series, and as much as part of me wishes I could have a different opinion from the general consensus, I have to agree. It really is such a great game. It's not perfect, obviously, but the characters are great, the writing is great, progression and combat are wonderfully built upon, and compared to the last game, it does a much better job at taking advantage of the system's capabilities. Being able to explore the inside of Bowser's body also gives the artists an opportunity to create surreal environments that really help keep things fresh. This game might also have my favorite soundtrack in the series, and I especially love how the music changes when you switch control between the brothers and Bowser. But you know what I just realized? Superstar Saga and Partners in Time were both released for the Wii U's Virtual Console, but Bowser's Inside Story wasn't. I'm not sure why this is, but since the original DS version ended up becoming the best-selling game in the series, that was clearly more than enough for Alpha Dream to give it a 3DS remake, which ironically became the worst-selling game in the series. Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey launched in late 2018, and though worldwide sales numbers have yet to be revealed, and probably never will be, Famitsu reported that the game only managed to sell 34,000 copies in Japan during its entire run. So not only is it the worst-selling Mario and Luigi game, it's one of the worst-selling games in the entire Mario franchise. In fact, it sold so poorly that, according to inside sources, it single-handedly killed the 3DS. So, does that mean I'm technically holding a valuable collector's item? I guess not, since it doesn't go for much on the secondhand market. Alright then.
But holy crap, if it did so horribly, the game itself must be pretty bad. Well, actually, no, it's not. mean, the frame rate was cut down from 60 FPS to 30, and microphone functionality was removed, so they might have had to take a few cost-cutting measures. But like with Superstar Saga on the 3DS, I think this might be better than the original in every other way. Everyone starts with 3 gear slots by default, you get new badges through story progression, and all these fancy new 3D cutscenes add some nice visual flair. My only gripe is that the timing for the bros attacks is a little different, and it kinda threw me off at first, but everything else is better. Not by much, but just enough to make this version worth your while. Critics seem to like it too, so why did this game flop so hard? Was it really because it came out at the tail end of 2018 when everyone's attention was squarely on the Nintendo Switch? Well, probably, yeah, but then again, the 3DS version of Luigi's Mansion came out around that time, and it still managed to sell over 27,000 copies in its first week, 3 times more than this game did in that same period. Maybe general interest in the series was waning by this point? I don't know, but what about that new Bowser Jr.'s Journey mode? It's Minion's Quest again. No, seriously, it's just a carbon copy of Minion Quest from the Superstar Saga remake, except Bowser Jr. is the only captain for the whole campaign. There are these new baddies called the Best Fitness Friends, which sounds like a cringy workout-based YouTube channel, and you get to add the Koopalings to your squad. That's kinda cool. But yeah, if you've played Minion Quest, you've played Bowser Jr.'s Journey.
Hey, hi! You might have noticed that the shot looks slightly different. Well, that's because when I took a break from filming to move all of my stuff to the computer, I bumped into the tripod ever so slightly. It is late. I should not be filming at this time, but we're gonna keep going anyway because I love you. You might have also noticed that as we get farther along, the summaries for each game are starting to get a little bit shorter, but that's not because I want to get this video done and over with as soon as possible. I mean, I kind of do, because we are over an hour in now. Yeah, fun. But from Superstar Saga onwards, the only major changes that come with each game are with the music, the story, elements of the gameplay and the combat, and just the overall gimmick. So at this point, it's kind of like Smash Brothers in that it's a matter of what each installment of the series has to bring to the table. I don't know why, but I feel like I have all this energy, maybe because I had a lot of cupcakes and hot chocolate earlier before filming. I don't know what to do with myself. So the Mario & Luigi series first made the leap to the Nintendo 3DS in 2013, and since that was during the year of Luigi, or as Luigi himself liked to call it,
the year of me.
This gave Alpha Dream a chance to widen his role and basically make him the center of attention. Thus, we got Mario and Luigi Dream Team. The 3DS officially became the permanent home for the Mario and Luigi series, and because of that, I couldn't record my own footage of these games in the most comfortable or professional manner. So for the sake of keeping the quality of the footage consistent, the clips of this game that you'll be seeing were recorded by ZackScottGames, unless this little credits graphic down here states otherwise. I'm still going to be sharing my own personal thoughts and experiences with these games, but I'm just not going to be passing the footage off as my own, because that baby ain't mine.
The story begins with Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, Toadsworth, and a group of toads leaving the Mushroom Kingdom as they've been invited to this place called Pilo Island. On the way there, Dr. Snoozemore, proprietor of the island, tells them that he's conducting research on a magical power that puts people to sleep. It's called a podcast, and he communicates with them through this TV screen that Broggy apparently has on his backside. I also find it ironic that Snoozemore would be studying this topic, since I'm pretty sure he has severe narcolepsy. When they make it to the island, they find Starlo hanging around Pilo Castle. Oh, great, my least favorite character from the last game is back. Break out the champagne and smash her face in with it. But then Peach and Toadsworth accidentally send themselves away on a moving platform, and Mario and Luigi follow soon after. But before they can find them, the bros have to go through a series of challenges given to them by Smoldergeist, which involves killing a bunch of monsters in order to progress. You know, if he really doesn't want us to go farther, he shouldn't have to keep opening doors for us. Is that just an obligation he has to follow as part of the challenges? By the way, does anyone else think the Pilo symbol kind of looks like the Discord logo? Well, eventually they do reunite with Peach and Toadsworth, and it's here where they stumble across a magic pillow with badges inside. Bit of a weird way to introduce them, but okay. Afterwards, they come across a collection room with various treasures on display, and Luigi takes a nap on a giant bed. Using the pillow while he's sleeping causes a portal to the dream world to appear over his head, and then a dark figure grabs Princess Peach and pulls her inside. Mario quickly jumps into the portal to try and find her, but soon comes across a dream version of Luigi. Together, they break open a nightmare chunk and release Prince Dreambert from within, who's also revealed to have been the magic pillow the brothers found earlier. It's later revealed that Pilo Island was home to the Dream Stone and the Dark Stone, two magical rocks that could, well, this is a Mario RPG, so I'm gonna say they make toast? Oh, so close. The Pilos tasked themselves to protect the stones until Antasma, the Bat King, stole the Dark Stone, planning to use it for his own purposes. Unable to defeat him, the Pilos sealed him away in the Dream World, but Antasma retaliated by shattering the Dark Stone into pieces that rained down over the island and encased the Pilos in nightmare chunks when touching them. Dreambert tells us that he won't be able to free them without Mario's help, but they also have Antasma to worry about since he was able to use Peach's power to escape into the real world. And he also teams up with Bowser because, well, they had to bring him in somehow. The plot is a little more straightforward this time, with some odd spots here and there, but still pretty entertaining. And since Dream Team was released in celebration of Luigi's 30th anniversary, he's given a much bigger role, which makes me very happy. Why does Starlo have to be so hard on him, though? Sure, he's a bit more timid and clumsy than Mario, but he's perfectly capable of holding his own. Maybe that's why I'm not super fond of her. Either that or because she keeps showing up in these games when she really doesn't need to. Or the onslaught of tutorials. I already know how this stuff works by now, Starlo, so could you please, for 1 second, shut ya damn mouth? I do find it funny when the second Pilo we rescue points out that Starlo is basically naked.
Hey now! Who's nude? Open your eyes! I have shoes!
Yeah, that settles it then. It's like saying, hey, I'm not a cannibal. I only eat fingers!
Luigi's also given much more significance in the gameplay. Like in Bowser's Inside Story, the Mario Brothers will be traveling between two different worlds. The real world still has you running around wide open spaces, while the dream world is where the 2D action takes place. To get to the dream world, Luigi falls asleep on these other magical pillows to create portals that Mario will have to jump into. If you're wondering why it doesn't work when Mario tries to sleep on the pillow, well, because Luigi can fall asleep almost instantly, so the speed at which he conks out is enough to make the portal appear. Well, I've played Luigi's Mansion 3, so this doesn't come as a big shock. In the dream world, Mario's accompanied by the dream version of Luigi, or Dreamy Luigi as the game and possibly Daisy call him. The two of them can break open nightmare chunks to rescue the Pilos trapped inside, allowing the Pilos to return to the real world where they can assist the brothers in various ways. Reaching further parts of the dream world often requires you to do a lot of puzzle solving, and that's where Starlo comes into play. Yeah, you can technically play as her now. By using the touchscreen, you can have Starlo mess with Luigi's face to make certain things happen in the dream world, like pulling his mustache to get tree branches to launch Mario from a particular distance, or making him sneeze to push background elements into the foreground or blow some scenery away. The dream world also has you finding Luiginoid... Stupid friggin' chair! The dream world also has you finding Luiginoid formations, constellations in the shape of Luigi's face. Luiginoids are basically duplicates of Dreamy Luigi that he can summon by entering the formations. Luiginoids can then stack up on top of each other and be morphed into different shapes, allowing Mario to do things like a spring jump or swing them around to destroy objects blocking your path. I felt that the Dream World sections were much more involved than the inside of Bowser's body in the last game. You still had plenty of vital actions to perform in helping him unlock new abilities and execute boss fights, and you could have him do things to affect your progress at the same time, but you didn't have much else to do until Bowser got himself into trouble, and you either had to play a minigame to help him out, or just leave for the time being and carry on with your side of the story. The interaction between the dream world and the real world is more intuitive, the areas are more aesthetically pleasing, and the times where you have to go into the dream world don't disrupt the flow of the game. I don't like how the map on the bottom screen keeps switching back to Luigi sleeping every time you move. I wish there was an option for you to manually toggle between displays. Why is it that the Mario and Luigi games before the remakes keep struggling with having decent map functions? Exploration and progression aren't the only two things that are different in the dream world, but so is the combat. In the real world, it's the same as it ever was, only now enemies drop coins when they're defeated during the battle. Kinda like Paper Mario Sticker Star, but with experience points. So it's actually fulfilling. And Mario and Luigi also each have their own unique set of bros attacks, with most of Mario's targeting single foes, and most of Luigi's targeting multiple foes. In the dream world, Mario fights by himself with help from the Luiginoids, which increase his HP and deal more damage to his opponents. And instead of bros attacks, Mario can use Luiginary attacks, where the Luiginoids can help Mario do more damage if he stacks enough of them. The 3DS gyro controls come into play here, and they're a little awkward, but you don't need to use them for every attack, so that's okay. Remember the giant Bowser fights in the previous game? Well, now, before taking on certain bosses, Dreamy Luigi will combine with dozens of Luiginoids to become Giant Luigi. These fights use the touchscreen in a similar manner to Bowser's Inside Story, but Luigi has a couple more actions to perform. These involve beating opponents upside the head with his hammer, tapping mushrooms at the same pace that Mario throws them to replenish his health, and using the gyro controls of the 3DS to have Mario land a successful hit while riding a star, all the way from space. Dream Team also introduces expert challenges, which basically act as achievements you can get for performing certain actions in battle. Completing expert challenges gives you points, and earning enough of them will reward you with stronger equipment. It's a pretty neat feature, but I'm not really concerned about consecutively landing excellent hits when I'm fighting off bad guys. I just want to kill them and get it over with.
I'm also kind of worn out from battling because I've been playing these games back to back for the past 3 months. I haven't showered, slept, or seen my family in forever. This was the worst idea I ever had.
I apologize if this summary is a lot more generalized than the other games, but as much as I'd like to go into more detail, that's pretty much what you get with Dream Team. The Dream World setting is a lot trippier than what we're used to, which is very welcoming, but while the story has a lot of the same charm as the first 3 games, it also kinda lacks in terms of twists and surprises. There are a few, like near the end when Bowser uses Antasma as a pillow, and then Mario and Luigi go into his dream world, but Antasma sorta comes off as a generic bad guy and doesn't have as strong a presence as Cacaletta or Princess Shroob. I love the idea of exploring people's dreams, and it makes for a great mechanic. I just think if they took the plot in a more exciting and unexpected direction, pushed Bowser into more of a secondary role, and made Antasma a more intimidating villain, the game could have been a lot stronger for it. The presentation, on the other hand, is top-notch. Dream Team moves away from the pixel art style of the first 3 games, and now the backgrounds are completely 3D, while the characters are 2D sprites shaded to look 3-dimensional. Achieving the stereoscopic 3D effect apparently also added 3 years to the game's development, but it really makes the game pop, and I think it was worth it in the end. The soundtrack didn't immediately strike a chord with me, and admittedly, I think Yoko's Kingdom Hearts side tends to show more than her Mario and Luigi side. But the updated instruments breathe some much-needed life into the music, and like in Bowser's Inside Story, the music changes when you enter the dream world, which, again, is a very nice touch. All in all, I don't think Dream Team is better than Bowser's Inside Story, but it's still a pretty fun game in its own right, and one that I'd like to try again someday.
So that just leaves us with the latest game in the series that isn't a remake, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, released in late 2015. And oh boy, this is gonna get personal. You guys know how much I love Paper Mario, so you can imagine when this game was announced, I was surprised, but also quite intrigued. A crossover between Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi games? I mean, I still wasn't a huge fan of the latter at this point, but let's go, bro! But Sticker Star was the newest Paper Mario game during that time, and seeing that Paper Mario's representation in Paper Jam was based entirely on that game turned my fascination into skepticism. So if I end up being a bit harsher towards this game than the other ones, I apologize in advance. But Sticker Star is a bunch of garbage anyway, so don't let that put you off. Up until now, I've played almost every single one of Mario's role-playing adventures, and generally I've enjoyed my time with them. But when Paper Mario comes into the picture, there's just no way I can judge it without being a little bit biased. Still, this is a Mario and Luigi game first and foremost, and I couldn't let my preferences affect my opinions on it too much. That being said, this game is such a letdown it almost hurts to think about.
Paper Jam opens with Luigi and Toad going up into the attic of Peach's castle, where a scaredy rat pops out through a crack in the wall and chases Toad around. During the commotion, Luigi bumps into a bookshelf, causing a giant book to fall on him. Then the book opens up and releases characters from the Paper Mario universe, except any of the good ones, into the Mushroom Kingdom. I didn't like this at first, but since most of the Paper Mario games have a sort of storybook aesthetic already, I think having that world exist as a book in the Mario and Luigi universe fits pretty well and makes the most sense. But anyway... Yes, good point. Paper Toads scatter all across the kingdom, so both Peach and Paper Peach task Mario and Luigi with going out to find them. Oh, and Starlow's here again. I don't know why, but there she is. Wait, now she's saying she represents the Star Spirits? I thought it was Star Sprites. Was that just a goof on the part of the localization team, or is Star Spirits supposed to be a sneaky reference to the original Paper Mario?
Well, that's to assume that anyone at Nintendo recognizes that any of the Paper Mario games before Sticker Star even exist, but they hardly ever do. Oh. There's still hope for you after all!
Unfortunately for them, Paper Bowser's minions have also flooded the Mushroom Kingdom, and I love that the first thing Mario and Luigi do when confronting a paper enemy is fold it and crumple it up. That's pretty funny. But after they get trampled by a wheel of paper Goombas, Paper Mario swoops in and saves them. It's here where the duo becomes a trio, as Paper Mario decides to tag along for the ride. But while the three of them are off on their adventure, Bowser and Bowser Jr. team up with their paper counterparts, invade Peach's castle, and capture the princesses. From this point onward, the plot becomes the two Bowsers threaten to take over the kingdom, and the Mario Brothers and Paper Mario have to stop them. I should also mention that while I was taking notes for this video, Paper Jam was where I had the most to talk about with the story. But not because it gets any deeper, it really doesn't. Compared to previous games, Paper Jam is much simpler and safer. So most of my notes are just me complaining. It doesn't hurt the series as much as Sticker Star hurt Paper Mario, because the Mario and Luigi games already had relatively simple plots, but they still threw in a lot of fun twists and new characters to keep them from feeling like normal Mario games just with different skins. Don't expect any of that here. Newer Paper Mario games already had a problem with there being too many Toads and Goombas and the like, but now Paper Jam gives you twice as many, making me dislike it twice as much. You don't run into any new characters at any point in the game, and the only character that returns from the other Mario and Luigi games is Starlow, who I wasn't very big on to begin with. Apparently original characters were considered, but the team felt it would be too challenging to fit them at an appropriate appearance in the story, and that they already had a lot of characters to work with. But come on! Paper Mario has a fantastic and hugely varied cast of unique and original characters that you could play with, and the other Mario and Luigi games do as well. So don't tell me you already have a lot of characters to work with when you resort to sticking with the same generic enemies and supporting characters we've seen before, and your idea of a new character is a Lakitu that introduces himself as Alakatu. This game just reeks of untapped potential, especially for me coming into this as a fan of both Paper Mario and now the Mario and Luigi series. Seeing these two worlds collide is very appealing when you're just looking at a screenshot or maybe fan art, but the way it's executed here is not as satisfying as it should be. Spider-Man No Way Home this ain't. Maybe if the Paper Mario side sucked here, but the Mario and Luigi side was great, I could find something to appreciate there. The thing is, you're not getting the best of what makes either of them so great. Each side is only giving you the bare minimum. The Paper Mario aspect is explored so little that it ends up coming off as superfluous. And there might be a reason for that. Paper Jam might be selling itself as a Mario and Luigi Paper Mario crossover, but it wasn't initially planned to be that way. Just to touch on the gameplay for a second, the main gimmick revolves around Paper Mario acting as a third character to fight alongside Mario and Luigi. Alpha Dream already experimented a bit with having you control other characters, like in Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story, but they were either extensions of Mario and Luigi or separate characters going on their own adventure. This time they wanted a third character to join the brothers in combat and be mapped to their own button. They eventually settled on having it be a second Mario, which is how Paper Mario came in.
They also considered adding Paper Luigi as a fourth character, but they thought it would make the game too complicated. But I don't know, Partners in Time had you play with up to 4 characters, and that worked out okay. I'm not sure how it could have been done here, but it still feels weird having Paper Mario, but not Paper Luigi. I mean, he does show up a couple times, so it's not like he was completely neglected, but it's just not the same, you know? Why did it have to be a second Mario anyway? Partners in Time already did that too. If they really needed someone to fill that third character slot, why couldn't they just think of a new fighting style and create a character around that? Well, wait, we can't have any new characters because we've already got a lot to work with. Okay, so what about Princess Peach? We never got to play as her in the other games, so this could have been a great opportunity to put her more in the spotlight instead of just having her be a damsel in distress again. Maybe they could have explored that wish magic they gave her in Bowser's Inside Story. Yeah, after that game, it's kind of glossed over. And you know, it's not like they're incapable of figuring out how to do it. Super Mario RPG made her playable, and that was made by the same people. Hang on. I'm starting to notice a pattern here.
There seemed to be quite a number of things that were intended to be part of the game at some point, but had to be scrapped or taken out, either because the dev team wasn't sure how to implement them, or they really just don't know what their fans want. So Paper Mario characters are brought into the Mario and Luigi world, right? Well, how come the Mario and Luigi characters never travel to the Paper Mario world? Well, because the developers thought it would be too complex, and that no one would enjoy it.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not.
First off, the option to travel between 2 different worlds is nothing new for the series. Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, and Dream Team all had their own variations of this mechanic, and each one was incorporated in a way that was simple but still inventive. So what exactly would have made traveling between the Mushroom Kingdom and the Paper World any different? Second, no one will enjoy it? Are you kidding me? People would have loved that! I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but there is so much that could have been done with that idea. Like maybe Mario and Luigi could have been trapped in the book and Paper Mario would be stuck in the Mushroom Kingdom trying to get them out. And maybe the chapters in the book could be based on events from the Paper Mario games that play out in a different way since most of the characters in the book would have been taken out. Does someone else take the Star Rod if Bowser isn't there to steal it? Would the Shadow Queen need another vessel if Peach isn't there for her to possess? You see how much better this could have been? Maybe I'm just letting my imagination go too wild, but ultimately I feel the team focused too much on sacrificing fun ideas for the sake of keeping things simple, and Paper Jam suffers because of that. I do get the sense that they wanted to make this game bigger, but either they just got lazy, or their pitches kept getting shot down by the higher-ups. Well, who supervised this project anyway? Oh. That explains everything.
But that's just all I had to say about the story. What about the rest of the game? Well, it's fine. Yeah, it's just fine. It's not great, but it's not insultingly terrible either.
It's about what you'd expect. However, some things have been tweaked a bit. You don't get to pick extra stat boosts when leveling up anymore, but Mario starts with his hammer by default. You're given bros attacks pretty early on, and instead of unlocking them by collecting attack pieces, you get them after catching the nabbit at different times.
Hey, it's me. They want to hear the line. So, should I just hold the phone up to the camera or something? Okay. There you go. Thanks, man. Oh, and, sorry about your wife.
Expert challenges return from Dream Team, but you're not automatically rewarded with items and equipment when getting a certain number of points. Now you have to buy them from a shop, using the points you earn as a form of currency. Overworlds are the same as before, with Mario and Luigi being mapped to the A and B buttons respectively. Meanwhile, Paper Mario is mapped to the Y button, and he can slip through tight spaces and explore certain areas on his own, like the Paper Thin ability in Thousand Year Door. In combat, Paper Mario can also make copies of himself to deal more damage, and every time he gets hit, he loses a copy, and starts taking damage if he runs out of copies. In addition to the returning bros attacks, Mario, Luigi, and Paper Mario can perform trio attacks, which involves flattening foes with a giant cardboard hammer and then doing whatever the action requires you to do. The bros can still use items and gear, but the badges from the previous games have now been replaced with these things called battle cards. Did you like Paper Mario Color Splash? No? Well, good, because these don't work anything like the ones in that game. You can make a deck of 10 cards, and during battles you can use 1 card per turn, each one requiring a certain number of star points to use. They work like badges in that they can affect the battle in different ways, like dealing damage to your opponents, making enemies weaker, or giving you temporary stat boosts. You can also scan in certain amiibo figures to obtain special support cards, but I mean, it's okay, but I don't really care. Mario, Luigi, and Paper Mario all carry hammers, and on the overworld they're able to combine their hammer attacks to destroy large blocks or flip over pieces of cardboard. They can also do a simultaneous flutter jump with a press of the X button, and when they touch the ground, you can have them perform a dash by holding down the button and releasing. Then while running, you can press the A button to make them slide, which is only really needed during chase sequences or the side quest that has you going after paper toads.
Yeah, no thanks.
But I guess I have to go look for them if I want to use more of those paper crafts. Giant battles from the last 2 games now have a spiritual successor in the form of papercraft battles. Paper toads you find on the overworld return to Peach's castle to help Toadette build these huge cardboard mech things that the bros can use to fight enemies piloting papercrafts of their own. Battles take place in these open 3D spaces, and you can dash into other papercrafts or be thrown up into the air to attack from above. Dashing depletes your attack meter, so you'll have to charge it by standing on these platforms and pressing the Y button in time with the music, like a mini rhythm game of some kind. Each papercraft also has their own unique attributes. Luigi has a hammer, Peach can use her parasol to hover, Yoshi can ground pound and use its tongue to grab stuff from far away, and Fire Mario can shoot fireballs. These sections are alright, I guess. They're definitely the best part of the game. And previous games have always used minigames to tackle other genres with mostly positive results. I just can't help but feel like the papercraft battles stand out a little too much from the rest of the game. The giant Bowser and giant Luigi fights still had you perform some of the same actions you would in traditional battles, so they felt more like a natural extension of the battle system. And while I do enjoy the papercraft battles to an extent, it's almost like a totally different game got crammed in here, and they feel a bit out of place. Aside from that, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam is absolutely fine for what it is. I wouldn't go so far as to call it the sticker star of this series, because I don't think that's entirely fair, but I guess it does feel like sticker star in that when comparing it to the games that came before, this one comes off as a huge step backwards, definitely in terms of pacing, because this might be the most repetitive Mario and Luigi game yet. It's like every time you find yourself in a new location, you need to get somewhere, something's blocking your path, you either learn a new ability or use the ones you already have to get past it, and then you get caught in a trap or sent to another area, then you'll have to find your way back, fight a boss, and move forward. However, Paper Jam does have some redeeming qualities. The 3D doesn't pop as much as it did in Dream Team, but graphically, it still looks really good. Despite the lack of unique characters and settings, the art style is nevertheless just as appealing as it was in the last game. Though, I think it would have been cool if the Paper Mario characters had their own unique font and speech bubbles to match how they look in the games they come from, but I've asked for too much already. As for the music, Yoko might not be giving us her best material, but there are still some pretty good songs here. I also find it cool that before Paper Mario joins your party, the battle music that plays when you're just controlling Mario and Luigi is a remix of the battle theme from Superstar Saga. That's a nice little throwback. All in all, Paper Jam makes for a perfectly decent experience that I'm glad I didn't completely hate, but as a crossover between two of the most beloved series of spin-offs Mario's ever had, seeing such a promising concept done in such a boring and overly simple way will leave fans of both series wanting more, and ultimately feeling disappointed. I'll give it this though, it is the best 3DS game Paper Mario's ever been in. Then again, that's not really saying much, is it?
Over the course of making this video, I've really grown to love the Mario and Luigi series, so it's kind of sad for me to see it go out not with a bang, but with a whimper. High development costs and dismal returns forced Alpha Dream to shut down in October 2019, and with their closure, the future of the series is completely up in the air. I'd like to think Nintendo will eventually hand the reins off to another developer, but maybe they just don't like the idea of two different Mario RPG series coexisting anymore? Or maybe the Bowser's Inside Story remake sold so poorly that it scared them into never making another Mario and Luigi game again. Well, you put it on the 3DS in late 2018. How did you think it was gonna go? Certainly can't be that people are tired of seeing Mario role-playing games in general. I mean, Paper Mario the Origami King did pretty well in terms of sales last year, so in Nintendo's eyes, that must be where the real money is. Fans might have some of the loudest voices in the gaming industry, and I'm sure there are some that would rather see Nintendo scrap Paper Mario and stick with Mario and Luigi, but developers often listen to the numbers more, and they kinda have to. Video game companies do have a large focus on trying to keep their fans happy, but if they want to keep their businesses up and running, they need to fish where the fish are biting. And why do you think we've been seeing less of Earthbound and F-Zero? Sometimes Nintendo will do something to appeal to fans of more niche properties like those, but let's face it, they're not as easy to bank on as Zelda or Pokemon. And the numbers don't lie. After Bowser's Inside Story, the Mario and Luigi games sold less and less as they came out. Paper Jam just barely passed 1 million copies, and the remakes kept slipping farther and farther below that amount. Was the 3DS really to blame, or was it problems with the series itself? Well, as far as Nintendo's concerned, it doesn't seem to matter, because if Paper Mario games are still making big bucks, to them, that's all the RPG action Mario needs right now. Now, I'm not trying to rule out the possibility of Mario and Luigi making a resurgence in the future, because I really want this series to keep going. I'm just saying, based on the later game's track record, sad to say, but that might not be for a while. But you know what? I'm glad that I finally decided to buckle down and play through these games. Even if this experience did take off 5 years of my life. Now, how would I rank these games from best to worst? Well, I'd have to say Bowser's Inside Story is my absolute favorite for its high amount of charm and all the refinements it made to the formula. But then below that, I'll put Partners in Time, which I really enjoyed for its darker tone and fun gameplay elements. Then in third place for me is Dream Team for its unique blend of mechanics and the way it executes them. Then I'll have to put Superstar Saga in fourth, because while I respect it for being the first in the series, it's a little too clunky for me to put it higher up on my list. And finally, at the bottom would be Paper Jam, which again is not a bad game, but could have been so much better given the premise, and just feels like a big missed opportunity. I don't know if I'll ever make another video like this again, but knowing me, it's probably bound to happen at some point in the future because I hate myself. But one thing's for sure, when this is all over, and once I'm done filming and editing and uploading, when I'm done with this video, I'm going to be taking a long break. I've spent so much time pushing myself, trying to get this video made. And you know what? It might not even get that many views, but I don't care. I really don't care. There's this fear, this anxiety that a lot of YouTubers deal with where they'll put so much time into their videos. Like they'll spend hours, days, or even months making just a single video, and the view count doesn't really reflect that, and it can be heartbreaking. But, you know, I don't really care about that kind of stuff, because ultimately, and I've said this countless times before, what's most important to me is just getting stuff out there and hoping that people will find some sort of comfort or entertainment value in it. Since the beginning, you've helped me get through a lot of my best times and especially a lot of my worst times. And because of you, I have been able to grow, not just as a content creator, but as a person. Words may never describe just how humbled and grateful and thankful I am to all of you for commenting and liking and subscribing and just sharing the videos around and just pouring all this support on me. I feel like I really don't deserve it. I really don't know where I would be without you guys. So I guess there's nothing left to say except Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Ramadan, whatever you celebrate. Happy holidays. Love each other. Don't be cynical. Be good, behave, be safe. And here's hoping that a lot of you will stay with me going into 2022. So, good night. I did it! It's finally over! Oh. I gotta sleep now.
Oh boy, 2.5 hours, 2 cups of water, and 3 green apples later, and we're finally at the end. Now before we go, I want to give a very special thank you, as always, to my superstar supporters for this month, Red Rack, Henry Newman, Rachel Rodriguez, and Jake Winans. If you'd like to support me as well, then please consider pledging to my Patreon page or becoming a sponsor of this channel by clicking the join button. Membership options give you the same benefits as my Patreon, including being able to watch videos before they come out, getting access to exclusive content, and getting shoutouts at the end of my videos. Both my Patreon and YouTube membership are totally optional, but it would really mean a lot to me if you gave them a look. Actually, going into the new year, I realize now that I haven't really taken a lot of advantage of that this year, except for like releasing my scripts and posting the videos early. I want to do something more with that going into the new year. I have ideas for what I want to do, but I'm just not sure exactly how to tackle so many things at once by myself, so I'm gonna have to hire some crew if I'm able to do that. And I'm probably going to do like an update video or something going into more detail about my plans for the new year. But, well, I have to pee. Also, I'm tired and my voice is sore. Now, there are some things that I would normally say for this part, but I already said them in the outro, so my chair is squeaking. Sorry about that. Shut up. God, I'm so tired, but I really hope this video comes out great, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But for now, I'll just leave you in the same way I always do, which is plugging my social media and Discord server. Links to them are in the description. And if you want to stay updated on my future uploads, be sure to click the notification bell. You guys are the greatest, and I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Thanks again for watching, and with that said, this is Mark, wishing you all a happy holidays, a fun and safe new year, and bidding you all a smashing farewell. I love you, and take care.